It took Jack Harrison 12 years to grow a single street food truck into a 7-restaurant empire. It took him less than a month to burn it all to ash. This isn't a fictional cautionary tale, but a true story from Austin, Texas. The protagonist, Jack, left this world at the age of 37, in a way none of us could have foreseen. To understand the depths of this tragedy, we must go back to the beginning. Jack Harrison was not born into a business dynasty. His childhood was spent in a typical blue-collar neighborhood in East Austin, where the air was thick with the scent of barbecue and the sound of country music drifting from neighbors' backyards. His father, Mr. Harrison Sr., was a diligent mechanic, and his mother a cashier at a local grocery store. Their life was simple and honest, built on the creed of hard work and integrity. Money was tight, and even with both parents working tirelessly, they barely made ends meet. Jack learned early on that while money might not be everything, life was nearly impossible without it. He watched his classmates show off their new Nike sneakers and discuss summer vacation plans, while he spent his afternoons mowing lawns for a little pocket money. The contrast planted a seed of yearning in his young heart. He was playful and energetic, the king of the neighborhood kids, but deep down, he possessed a sharp business intuition that belied his age. He dropped out of school early, convinced that the theories taught in classrooms were no match for the real-world transactions happening on the streets. He chose a harder, more direct path, joining his parents in running their dilapidated food truck. It was a battered 1980s Chevy van, the words Harrison's homestyle cooking faded and peeling on its side. Every morning, while the city still slept, Jack and his father would head to the wholesale market to source the freshest ingredients. He hated the sticky smell of fish and the crude shouts of the butchers, but he forced himself to adapt. He learned how to pick the ripest tomatoes and how to bargain for the best price on potatoes. His mother was in charge of the family's secret sauce, a unique blend of traditional Texas flavors and Mexican spice that was their sole competitive edge. Their truck specialized in Texas-style pulled pork sandwiches and smoked brisket tacos. Though Jack had little interest in cooking, he had a startling talent for selling. He realized that good food alone wasn't enough. He started observing the bustling food trucks and used his own savings to buy a bright LED sign that would stand out at night. He designed simple, eye-catching flyers and distributed them at nearby office buildings and universities. More importantly, he knew how to connect with people. He remembered regulars' names and their favorite orders, often throwing in an extra scoop of coleslaw or a few jalapeno slices. His smile was infectious, radiating the frankness and warmth of the Texas sun. People loved not just the food, but also the energetic young man who served it. Soon, long lines began to form in front of their truck. But Jack's ambition didn't stop there. He astutely recognized the massive opportunity in Austin's burgeoning street food scene. The city government, aiming to regulate the industry, began planning large food truck parks, consolidating the scattered vendors. Jack saw this not just as regulation, but as a consolidation of resources and customer traffic. Whoever controlled the best spots would control the future. He made a decision that shocked his parents. He wanted to take out a loan to lease stalls in the new food truck parks. Mr. Harrison Sr. was vehemently opposed, viewing it as a reckless gamble. They had lived their whole lives by the principle of steady work and had a deep-seated fear of debt. But Jack was resolute. He laid out a detailed analysis for his parents, covering market projections, customer flow growth, and the potential return on investment. His eyes burned with unshakable confidence and a hunger for the future. Ultimately, he persuaded them. Using their old family home as collateral and borrowing from every friend and relative he could, he scraped together the startup capital. Then, he made an even bolder move. Instead of leasing just one spot, he signed a 5-year lease for a dozen stalls in the most popular South Congress food park. To everyone else, it looked like an act of pure madness. The next few months were the hardest the Harrison family had ever faced. Jack practically lived at the park, sleeping only 3 hours a night. He positioned his family's truck in the prime spot and then began subleasing the other 11 stalls to other food truck owners. At first, many were hesitant, unwilling to risk the rent. Jack used his own success as a living advertisement. He even helped other vendors with promotion and organized joint marketing events, creating a vibrant, cooperative atmosphere throughout the entire park. As the food park's reputation exploded on social media, tourists and local foodies flocked to it. The stalls became highly sought-after real estate. The vendors who had once hesitated were now scrambling to rent a spot from Jack. Just by subleasing the stalls, Jack was clearing over $50,000 a month in profit. He had become the de facto landlord of the food park. From that moment on, Jack's life went into overdrive. He was no longer the guy waking up at dawn to prep food. He was a true entrepreneur. With the first pot of gold he earned, he quickly paid off all his debts. In less than 2 years, he made the leap from the street to a brick-and-mortar establishment. On the iconic 6th Street, he opened his first high-end barbecue restaurant, Jack Harrison's Texas Flame. The restaurant's design was a chic industrial modern blend of exposed brick, black metal piping, and warm leather, creating an atmosphere that was both rugged and stylish. He hired a top-tier culinary team to innovate on his family's secret recipes, launching signature dishes like 24-hour slow-smoked Angus brisket and whiskey-flamed tomahawk steak. Backed by the reputation Jack had built and a flurry of media coverage, the restaurant instantly became the city's hottest dining destination. Over the next decade, Jack's business empire expanded at a breathtaking pace. 6 more branches opened in major Texas cities like Houston and Dallas, each becoming a local culinary landmark. He was no longer the kid in the beat-up food truck, but a C-suite tycoon in custom suits, frequenting exclusive business clubs. He owned a mansion in Beverly Hills with a panoramic view of the Los Angeles skyline, a garage housing a Ferrari and a Rolls-Royce, and a bank account with a balance easily in the 8 figures. He also achieved another one of his youthful dreams. He married Emily, the girl he had loved since high school. Emily was a gentle and intelligent interior designer who had witnessed his entire journey from nothing to everything. Their wedding was a grand, romantic affair, hailed by local media as the perfect union of a Texas Cinderella and her prince. They had a lovely son named Leo. In the eyes of the world, Jack Harrison had it all: a successful career, a beautiful family, and a brilliant future. He was the quintessential embodiment of the American dream. If the story had continued on this trajectory, he might have become a nationally renowned restaurateur, his name listed alongside legendary entrepreneurs. But life offers no such guarantees. The cracks of fate often appear at the most brilliant of moments. The summer of 2019. It was a typical Texas afternoon, the sun scorching the earth. Jack was in his downtown office, reviewing the new season's menu. His life was a whirlwind of meetings, financial reports, and business decisions. His private phone rang. The caller ID showed Kevin, his brother-in-law. Kevin was Emily's only brother, a spoiled kid who never grew up. He was handsome and silver-tongued but aimless and perpetually unsuccessful. Jack had never been fond of him, finding him irresponsible, but for his wife's sake, he always helped him out. On the phone, Kevin's voice was laced with panic and desperation. "Jack, you have to help me. I'm in big trouble." Kevin's voice trembled. After some probing, Jack got the full story. Kevin had gotten hooked on online sports betting. What started as small wagers had spiraled out of control. He had lost all his savings and owed an underground loan shark $200,000. They had given him an ultimatum: pay up in 3 days or face dire consequences. Jack was furious. While $200,000 wasn't a small sum, what truly angered him was Kevin's reckless behavior. He berated Kevin over the phone, but his heart softened when he heard faint sobs on the other end. He couldn't let his wife's family be put in danger. He agreed to help, but on one condition: this was the last time. Kevin had to get a real job and stay away from his deadbeat friends and their fantasies. Jack had his assistant handle the payment that afternoon. He figured it was just a minor, unpleasant hiccup in his otherwise smooth life, something that would quickly be forgotten. The truly bizarre thing happened the next day. Kevin showed up at Jack's office, not in a panic, but beaming. He not only returned the $200,000 in cash, but also pulled out a thick envelope stuffed with $100 bills, a good $20,000, and insisted Jack take it as interest and a thank you. Jack was stunned. He looked at the confident, swaggering Kevin before him and couldn't reconcile this image with the terrified debtor from the day before. He pulled Kevin into his office, closed the door, and demanded to know where the money came from, suspecting some illegal activity. Kevin just smiled mysteriously. He took out his phone, unlocked it, and opened a flashy, colorful app. It was the interface of an online gambling platform, featuring everything from Baccarat and Roulette to Texas Hold'em and countless slot machines with enticing animations. "Times have changed, bro," Kevin said, his tone a mix of showing off and subtle temptation. "Who works hard for money anymore? Look at this." He explained the rules and odds of the games, his fingers flying across the screen. He opened a game called Speed Baccarat, placing a bet, and the cards were dealt. The numbers on the screen flashed, accompanied by thrilling sound effects that made one's heart race. "I used the money you gave me as my stake and won it all back on this," Kevin whispered, his eyes glowing with a fanatical light. "You know how much I won last night? Almost $1 million. After paying back the 20 grand, buying this, I still have plenty left. This is way faster than opening 10 restaurants." Jack stared at the screen, captivated by an unseen force. As a self-made man, he had a natural sensitivity to numbers and probability. Seeing those chips move so quickly on the virtual table, wins and losses decided in seconds, gave him a jolt of excitement, like a current running through his body. He had worked for 12 grueling years to build his fortune. In this virtual world, wealth seemed to multiply or vanish with the flip of a digital card. The seed of destruction, planted by the person closest to him, had found fertile ground in his seemingly unshakable soul. At first, he refused. He told Kevin he didn't touch this stuff, that his principle was to create value through real business. But Kevin just laughed. "Don't be so old-fashioned, Jack. This isn't gambling, it's investing. You're so smart, a mastermind in business. You'd be way better at this than me. Just think of it as a game, a way to relax." Kevin's words were a key, unlocking a hidden door in Jack's mind. "Yeah, I'm smart. I can manage risk. How could I possibly lose?" The arrogant, challenge-seeking devil within him was quietly awakened. "Come on, I'll show you. I'll place the first bet for you," Kevin coaxed. Jack hesitated for a moment, then acquiesced. He watched Kevin bet $1,000 on the banker. The dealer dealt the cards. Banker wins. In less than 20 seconds, $1,000 had nearly become 2,000. The feeling, it was strange. It wasn't the sense of accomplishment from closing a big deal, nor was it the satisfaction of seeing a packed restaurant. It was a pure, primitive, unearned thrill. It bypassed all the hard work and went straight to the reward center of his brain. The unseen hand of vice had finally reached for him. Staring at the stimulating interface, he could no longer restrain the impulse stirring within him. Some people seem fated to become entangled with certain things. Perhaps this is why ancient wisdom always warns us to maintain a vigilant distance from unknown temptations. Because once you cross that line, you may be facing a bottomless abyss. That afternoon, under Kevin's guidance, Jack won $5,000. He hadn't even used his own money, only the balance in Kevin's account. When he left the office, he felt a secret excitement and a sense of ease. He turned it into a secret game, his own thrilling little pastime. He told himself it was just for fun, that he was completely in control. He didn't know that from the moment he first tasted that unearned thrill, he was no longer the master of his own life. His world was already, quietly, tipping towards the edge of chaos. The magic of gambling is that it always offers a beautiful honeymoon period. For the first 2 weeks, Jack played like he was possessed by a gambling god. He seemed to have cracked some kind of code, every bet placed with perfect timing. He quickly progressed from betting a few $1,000s to tens of thousands per hand. The money was no longer wealth to him, it was just a string of numbers on a screen, a score to prove his intelligence and luck. By day, he was still the respected restaurant mogul, but he grew increasingly restless, anxiously awaiting the evening. As soon as he got home, he would lock himself in his study, claiming to be handling urgent business, and stare at his computer screen all night. He began to distance himself from his wife and son. Emily tried to talk to him several times, but he brushed her off, saying he was too tired from work. He used his winnings to buy Emily the latest Maserati and funneled a large sum into Leo's trust fund. While Emily was happy, she sensed a change in her husband. He became moody and unpredictable, euphoric after a big win, and explosive after a loss. The steady warmth in his eyes was being replaced by a glint of extremism and greed. The turning point came late one weekend night. Jack had been on a winning streak for days, and the number in his account had reached a staggering height. His confidence was boundless. He felt like a god in this virtual world. In a high-stakes game of online Texas Hold'em, he was dealt a near-perfect hand. Without a second thought, he pushed all his chips in, over $2 million. He was already fantasizing about buying a new building with the winnings. But when his opponent revealed their whole cards, Jack felt his blood run cold. Against all odds, his opponent's hand was just slightly better. The mountain of chips on the screen was instantly swept away. $2 million. Gone in seconds. The study was dead silent, save for the hum of the computer fan. Jack sat frozen, a chill running through him. It wasn't the pain of losing money. It was the rage and humiliation of being outsmarted, of being fooled. He couldn't accept it. He convinced himself it was a system glitch, that his opponent had cheated. "Impossible," he snarled, his eyes bloodshot. From that moment, the dam of reason broke. His only thought was to win back what he had lost. This was no longer a game, it was war. He started dipping into his company's liquid assets, funneling money again and again into that bottomless pit. He became frantic and paranoid, falling into the classic gambler's trap of chasing losses. His life entered a free fall. 6 months. In just 6 months, his frantic gambling, like a high-speed meat grinder, pulverized everything Jack had built over 12 years. His business collapsed. He stopped caring about restaurant operations, skipping important meetings. Suppliers, unpaid, cut off deliveries, forcing restaurants to close temporarily. His most trusted managers and chefs, unable to tolerate his erratic behavior and neglect, resigned. Texas Flame, once packed to the rafters, became desolate. He secretly mortgaged and then sold the Beverly Hills mansion for a lump sum, but that money didn't even last a week at the virtual tables. Then he started selling off shares of his restaurants. Like a desperate man, he ignored the pleas of his partners and lawyers. He screamed at them, claiming they didn't understand his grand plan, that he would win it all back with interest. How big of a fortune does it take to sustain someone who bets hundreds of thousands of dollars without blinking? The answer is, no fortune is big enough to fill the black hole of greed. His family was crumbling. Emily finally discovered the truth when she intercepted a collections notice from the bank with a number that made her dizzy. She stormed into his study, and they had the most ferocious fight of their lives. "Jack, what the hell are you doing? What is all this?" Emily's voice trembled with shock and fear. Caught in his web of lies, Jack's shame turned to rage. He dropped the pretense and unleashed all his resentment. "You're asking me? You should be asking your precious brother Kevin," he roared, his face twisted in a snarl. "It was him. He got me into this. I never would have touched this stuff if it weren't for him." Emily stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. She couldn't believe the man who once cherished her could become this monster. She tried to appeal to his reason, pleading with him, crying, begging him to stop for her, for their young son Leo. "We can use the money we have left to pay the debts. We still have the restaurants. It's not too late, Jack, please, let's come back from this." But the Jack before her was possessed by the demon of gambling. He shoved her away, his words like poisoned daggers piercing her broken heart. "What do you know? I'm about to win it all back. When I do, I'll have everything again. You and your family are just dragging me down." Everything came to a head on a cold night at the end of 2019. During one final bitter argument, Jack said unforgivable things. He even brought up divorce. Heartbroken, Emily looked at this complete stranger and felt her world collapse. She left a short note. It contained only one sentence: "The Jack I loved is already dead." Then she took her own life. It was at Emily's funeral that Jack's parents, the simple, kind-hearted old couple, finally learned the horrifying truth from relatives. Their son was not only addicted to gambling and over $10 million in debt, but the restaurant empire they were so proud of was a hollow shell, entangled in lawsuits and on the brink of collapse. In that moment, Mr. Harrison Sr. aged 20 years. He looked at his daughter-in-law's cold body, then at his son's empty, soul-drained eyes. The strong man finally broke down, tears streaming down his weathered face. His wife's death was a sledgehammer blow that momentarily shocked Jack out of his madness. He looked at his gaunt, red-eyed reflection in the mirror and felt a wave of profound remorse and terror. He had lost the most precious person in his life, all because of his damnable greed and hubris. With his parents' help, he began to dismantle his life. He sold the LA mansion, all the cars, the watches, every valuable he owned. He personally laid off the last of his employees and closed the doors to his final restaurant. As he handed over the keys, he felt his 12 years of hard work, his very soul, being sucked away. It was as if he was back where he started 12 years ago. No, it was worse. Back then, he had nothing but possessed dreams, youth, and love. Now he had nothing but millions in debt, the death of his wife, and a shattered heart. Finally, his parents made a heart-wrenching decision. They sold the house they had lived in for most of their lives, cashed out their life savings, and borrowed from every relative they could, scraping together the money to pay off his debts. They gave their son a chance to start over, to escape the nightmare he had created. When he received the final sum from his parents to clear his last debt, Jack knelt before them and wept uncontrollably. He swore he would never gamble again, that he would be a new man, take care of his young son, and be a good son to them. His parents believed him. They thought the darkest hour had passed. However, they all underestimated the terrifying power of a gambling addiction. To a pathological gambler, money has only one purpose: to be used as a stake. After receiving the money, Jack didn't pay a single debt. A more insane thought, like a venomous snake, coiled in his mind. This is my last chance. I have to use this money to win back everything I lost. For Emily, for Leo, for my parents. He checked into a cheap motel and opened the familiar website. His hands shook, his heart pounded. He went all in, betting his entire future on the fickle whims of probability. The end was predictable. In a matter of days, the money that represented his parents' life savings and the trust of his entire family was gone. When the balance on the screen hit zero, Jack felt no anger, no bitterness. Only a vast, dead emptiness. He knew he was finished. He had not only lost all the money, but also his family's last shred of trust and his last reason to live. He never went back to his parents. A few days later, the police found him in the motel room. He had chosen the same way out as Emily, ending his own absurd life. And his parents, the poor old couple, having lost their son and daughter-in-law in the blink of an eye, had to once again shoulder the heavy burden of life. With the little money they had left, they bought another old food truck and went back to selling their familiar pulled pork sandwiches on the streets of Austin. The food truck that once symbolized the start of a dream now carried the heavy remainder of a shattered family's life. The spot that was once the proud flagship of Jack's empire would never see him again. There was only a 5-year-old orphan, Leo, who quietly helped his white-haired grandparents set up and pack up their stall amidst the noise and grease of the street. He didn't understand what death and gambling meant. He would just often ask, Grandpa, when are Mommy and Daddy coming to get me? Whenever he did, Mr. Harrison Sr. would turn away to wipe a tear from his eye, then turn back, stroke his grandson's head with his calloused hand, and say in a hoarse voice, "They went on a long trip, to a place far away. But they love you, Leo. They love you very, very much." At dusk, the setting sun stretched the shadows of the three of them long and thin. The old food truck, under the neon lights of the bustling city, looked so small, yet so tragically steadfast. It stood like a silent tombstone, burying a once glorious American dream, and telling every passerby an eternal, cautionary tale of greed and destruction.